welcome to Uxbridge Beat, the podcast where we feature the who's who of Uxbridge, Ontario. My name is Jennifer Campsall.
And I am Scott Campsall, and this episode is another one where we keep it in the family. Many in town know my dad, Dale Campsall, as having been an elementary school teacher and a swim coach. But he was also the original director of Uxpool.
Uxpool is a special facility in Uxbridge.
Baby swim classes, public and lane swimming, aquafit, life-saving and scuba diving courses, and our local swim team are all regular inhabitants of our pool.
But how did a small town like Uxbridge, especially more than 50 years ago, have the finances, the forward thinking, and the opportunity to put an Uxpool?
Well, my dad has the answers to those questions. So let's dive into our chat and find out what's put the beat into his aquatic heart. Our big incentive for doing this was actually listening to you talk about the history of Uxpool. So to me, as somebody who is trying to do a documented podcast on Uxbridge and the people in Uxbridge, it seemed like you would be a good candidate for an interview. So I guess the first question is, tell us how you got to Uxbridge, because you weren't born here or raised here. So
Oh no, I had a 10-acre lot just north of town, and houses were being built on Beach Street, and the builder was willing to take my 10-acre lot as a down payment for that home. And that caused us to move to Uxbridge.
So how did you get involved with the pool?
Dr. Lennox became aware of a grant from the federal government, and the grant was really because the town was going through its centennial year, and it was a $100,000 one-time centennial grant that was given by the government. And we managed to, Dr. Lennox actually went to our government rep, and appealed for those funds, and then went to the town and spoke to the mayor, did a presentation, and convinced them that the swimming pool would be a great idea as a centennial project.
Was there already a group of you that were sort of like-minded individuals who wanted a pool in the first place?
It was because of the recreation committee, the original recreation committee that was formed. I was picked from that committee, that recreation committee, to be part of the group with Dr. Lennox and Dave Phillips. So we formed that core committee and then began getting our funds. And the builder was actually making, why our pool has rounded bottoms instead of square bottoms. It was because the pool builder, the designer, was actually a builder that was doing backyard pools, and he was using a shovel pack method. So they just poured the cement in, and the stuff was shoveled all around to form the walls. And so we ended up with those curved walls. It was the biggest pool that he'd ever made. And he was really unaware of how to do it on the spot that we were picking, because it had a number of springs that they didn't discover until they actually started digging the hole for the pool. And so then it involved something brand new again. They had to put 20 well points all around the pool area to create a dry bottom so that the pool wouldn't float up on top of the springs. And then they thought, well, this is kind of dangerous too, because the springs are going to come back. So they put in a hydrostatic relief valve, which I believe has never been used. That the springs have never risen and created that much pressure to blow that valve. But it would save the pool if it ever happened. It wouldn't float. It wouldn't cause structural damage. So we could end up with spring water in our pool.
Well, there was a big tap or pipe or something, I remember, in the deep end. That water used to flow out of that pipe. So what was that?
That was the spring water from the base of where the springs were.
So the pool is spring fed?
No, it isn't. It isn't. The valve is just there in case of an emergency. We fill the pool, at least originally, was filled with town water, and
$100,000 obviously didn't build the pool. But
you would be surprised.
Okay.
It certainly never came to the millions that they're talking about building a pool now, because of the design of the pool being a packed cement and block walls. Was extremely cheaply built. And the $100,000, I believe, was 50% of the cost I think that pool was built for $250,000. It's an old guy trying to recall what the actual cost was, but I think that's really what it came out to. The town took on a bond for 20 years, and it added $12.50 to every household in town for that 20-year period.
In taxes.
Yeah.
Huh. $12.50.
Yeah.
For a pool. Just put things into perspective.
For 20 years.
Yeah, for 20. Yeah.
So the pool itself, when you say to build the pool, are we strictly talking about the pool structure, or are we including the building and everything that went along with it?
That was the whole package. It was quoted by a company in Oshawa, and I can't recall their name. And Betts Pool was actually trying to compete against it to build it. And we actually went with the Oshawa company because Betts really couldn't come even close to matching the cost.
Do you remember how long it took from beginning to end?
I'm not sure, but I think it was like 45 days, and that's how long the well points ran continuously.
45 days. Now there'd be, let's find out this permit and let's get it, how long it would take just to run through the red tape.
We tried to get the other townships to contribute to the cost even, and there was a one-time grant, and I can't recall how many dollars were involved that came from Port Perry and from Scott Townships, which even reduced our loan.
So how did you become the first director? Because your name's on a plaque right by the door. So and you said there was people on a committee. So what put you as the director?
I was teaching at the time, so it was easy for me to, at that time, teaching jobs were easy to come by. So it was easy for me to quit my job. And I was the only one with any kind of aquatic experience at all.
What was your aquatic experience?
I swam at the University of Toronto, and I had been a swimmer since I was in grade 9 in high school. So I had lots of competitive swimming experience, and certainly was aware of how competitive pools should look when they were finished. And that made a huge difference on the original pool designs, because Betts was not designing a competitive pool at all. Give you an idea, one side of that pool is 1 inch longer than the other side.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you're a competitive swimmer, do you want to be on the longer end or do you want to be on the shorter end?
I am very happy that I've forgotten which side it is. Don't know what that 100th of a second would actually do to our records.
Well, there's another thing. So why 25 meters? Because now Olympic-sized pools are 50 meters. So why would you decide on 25?
25 meters is actually the indoor competitive design. If you went 50 meters, all the 50-meter pools at that time were outdoors. You just couldn't get a building and justify the cost to cover a 50-meter pool until Mississauga put up the funds to build an indoor 50-meter pool. That was actually the first one.
You were responsible for, back then, you could swim at Elgin Pond too. So how did that play into things? Like you
gave us our first lifeguards.
Okay.
Because I was recreation director, so then I had to interview for staff. They were all young kids and part-time workers, and it was like, okay, so how am I going to get full-time people to do this?
So there were lessons already going on at the pond before the pool was built.
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Yes.
Well, no, so that's...
So then I was able to interview all of those people, and certainly our summer staff moved from the pond to the pool. It was now a dedicated environment. You didn't have to depend upon weather. And I believe then they were replacing the docks, and most of the docks actually came out about the same time as the pool was built.
Did the pond then sort of become redundant?
It did. It was starting to fill in even at that time. It was muddy bottom and dark water. And because it is an old riverbed, there is a huge number of stumps in there until the town actually paid for cleaning out all of that and deepening it. It was just a swim hole. Once the pool came along, it was just such a nicer environment. It just stopped all the swimming.
And it would last all year. So you could swim in the winter too.
Well, it was so easy to go for walks or runs and just walk into that pond. It was wonderful. At that time, there had been sand dumped to create a beach there, and there was a little bit of a sandy bottom. So it was a good spot to serve the town, for the time that it did until the pool was built, and then it was shown as, this is a great thing to have to the town.
What was the idea behind the squash courts?
Oh, that was Dr. Lennox again. We found out that if we would create a meeting hall, we'd get a $10,000 grant from the government for free to build that upstairs hall. And with it going upstairs, then we immediately had this extra space to the sides to make a square building. So 2 squash courts went in. And it was actually the influence of 2 elderly gentlemen that just heard that we were building the pool, and they came along, why would you not put in squash courts and create this extra environment?
Like this was something that you should have considered already. Why wouldn't you have thought about squash courts?
Just because
but was squash
no one
bigger
played
then?
Squash.
No, nobody plays squash.
No.
So
it was like, it came because of Robin Campbell at University of Toronto. He gave us the plans for the pool, and in talking to him, he said, why don't you, and then add 2 squash courts? Your meeting hall, the surface area is big enough to get your grant. You don't have to extend over the whole floor space. You could actually use that and create another recreational environment. I think we had all of 2 squash players at the beginning of that. Formed a club of 2, and I learned to play squash.
but it got really successful. Like at one point, it was too full. There were people that couldn't even get into it. I don't know what the status is now. Like I know there's 1 court in there now still, I think.
It is. It's a bit of a problem to have squash courts in a pool because there's so much humidity in the air. It obviously condenses somewhere, and with outside walls like that, then you ended up with a wet surface, and a ball doesn't really play fair when it hits a wet surface. So you quickly learned how to use the court you were playing on.
Common question we get at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness is, what age can my child start karate?
And the answer is that we have children as young as 3 years old training with us. Austin is one of our amazing students, and he told us some of his favorite things about our program.
Do lots of stuff at karate, like leg falls, kicks, and blocks, and punches. I can do anything.
Austin can do anything, and we are excited to help bring out his potential and your child's too.
We use martial arts as a tool to help your child build confidence, focus, self-discipline, and respect for others.
Contact us at Okamikai Martial Arts and Fitness to get your child started today.
Mom, wake up, it's karate day!
How far from the opening of the pool to the creation of the swim team? How long was that time?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Making me think about this. It was very close on the heels. Terry Bryan, we swam together at the University of Toronto, and Terry was living in town and establishing his practice. So he greatly influenced the fact that we should begin competitive swimming. The pool was designed for competitive swimming with the swim lines and turning targets we had. So it was just a matter of finding a coach. Guess who stepped forward, although he reluctantly did so? Mary was volunteered to actually form the swim club. Terry got dragged into it.
Against his will?
Yeah. He knew the dedication and time that it requires to make competitive swimmers, and his life changed very much because he came as well every morning and 6 days a week. It's quite a commitment. And Mary started it, of course, but then Terry, having the nature he has, he wants, he don't want to waste our time. Let's do this right. So he started making up programs for the swimmers. And I became assistant coach because I was there all the time. So I would post the workouts and supervise them.
And the swim team is still going strong today because of those first early days.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to build something, whether it be a renovation on a house, or maybe you want to build a house, or any kind of project that involves construction. And you come up with a plan and you say, this is what we're going to do. There's always something that thwarts the plan. So what story can you remember with dealing with the pool where you went, oh, we didn't see that coming, and it might cost us a little bit more, maybe in time or money?
immediately the springs were a problem. And it was like, okay, how are we going to do this? And then that was when the engineer said, you need well points. And then that was really the biggest immediate problem.
That's interesting, because fast forward to all these years of them working on the culvert, that's exactly what happened with the culvert, was that they hit springs underneath, and they had to start pushing out the water in order to be able to lay the concrete there too. So I guess Uxbridge is just built on
quicksand.
springs.
Quicksand,
Which is what I said when we were
Yeah.
interviewing Dave before, was like the whole town's on quicksand.
Yeah, no, there is a truth to that.
What's your proudest accomplishment, you think, with the whole pool? Is that something where the whole thing, or is there a point where you go, no, I'm really glad we did this, and I'm really glad I stuck to my guns on that, or is there anything?
Sticking to my guns was involving Robin Campbell and having him create the competitive pool design. That pool was just going to be a backyard pool when it originally started. It was not going to be anything different. And once Robin became involved and submitted his plans, then he did that for free. It changed everything. It made it what it is today. Like it's.
Well, there wouldn't even be a swim club in there. Like
Nope. It'd be strictly recreation. And the town was. Oh, I remember one thing. When we went to make the presentation to the town, we said, understand this is going to be a constant tax burden on the town. Swimming pools do not make money, but they are one of the most important recreational facilities that you can have. Like teaching a child to swim in Canada, it's life-saving. You know you're going to save lives. And that's really what sold it. Then people said, yeah, this is a grand idea.
Does it still lose money?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Because swimming pools just don't make money. The number of staff that you require to actually run a pool. Even when I was there, I was the manager, I was the lifeguard, I was the only one on deck when there were swimmers in the pool. And that wasn't a problem at the time because there was only one swimmer. An older gentleman who lived several doors down used to come every morning. I'd open the pool at 6 o'clock in the morning and he'd be there.
And one person does not pay for a pool.
Oh, no. That was the longest time that we only had, very, very small recreational group. The first summer we had our first emergency. One of the best things I ever did was train staff to deal with emergencies. And the lifeguard that I trained was crying as she's making the rescue.
That's a proud moment. That's a very proud moment.
And so you were there when it happened, or you heard
Yes,
it?
I was. I was managing, and it was a gentleman had a heart attack, and he was just in the shallow end. So no one really had to tow him. We walked him over to the side, and Dr. Lennox had put in emergency phone for exactly this, and it was a red phone on our wall connected directly to the hospital. You just had to lift that up and the phone rang at the hospital.
Yeah, BodyFit's got that now and calling 911.
That's great. They were there within 10 minutes. And I don't think he died, but I'm not sure.
Well, could have taken a bit of a turn, that story. I'm really proud that we were able to pick up the phone, but
Let's just give it a happy ending, shall we?
Yes.
You saved his life.
well, like everybody, we do a thing we call rapid fire. So it really isn't rapid fire. Like you listen to other podcasts or interviews, and it's usually really short questions. And we say, like, I'm sure you've listened to all your son's and daughter-in-law's podcast episodes, but we're trying to explain this anyway. So we just ask you random questions. You can go on as long as you want. So it's more of us to just try to stay focused when we're asking.
Well, you know me. I'm 79. I give random answers.
There you go. First question is dogs or cats? Dolphins. Yeah, okay, sorry, yeah. All right, so dogs or cats?
Cats.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Favorite swim stroke?
Breaststroke.
Least favorite swim stroke?
Backstroke.
Okay, so now where I said rapid fire goes a little crazy. Does that mean that when you competed, that
I was a breaststroker.
yeah,
And
me too, but I'm not competing. No,
I know what you're going. I thought as soon as I say this, it's going to be trouble.
So bad for cats or dogs.
Yeah.
We ask other guests what their favorite place to get a burger in town is, but we know that burgers aren't necessarily your wheelhouse, but French fries are. So where's your favorite place in town to get French fries?
That depends upon whether I'm in for the really crispy ones or whether I want the Swiss chalet ones, which are kind of limp but wonderful.
And so if you're really wanting crispy ones, where do you like that?
Where would I go for crispy French fries? Wixom's.
Wixom's, yeah.
And favorite restaurant? And just in general? In town?
In town, probably Wixom's because it has the broadest menu, I think. It satisfies everything. And I like liver and onions, and they do a great job.
Who was your favorite swimming student ever?
Holy mackerel. There were so many wonderful young people. Our recent recreation director of the town right now, her and her husband swam for us right in the beginning. And they're definitely two favorite people.
What was one of your most frustrating swim coach moments? Coaching your own kids?
I hadn't thought about that. Frustrating. Teaching boys how to swim competitively and keep them dedicated. I actually kicked one young guy out of the pool when he came, and he wasn't working hard enough. He was just fooling around. And girls don't do that. They come to the pool, they swim. Boys, it's a different level of teaching. You know, you do have to take on a different demeanor to deal with young boys swimming competitively.
You taught elementary school for a good amount of years in town and around the area. Did you like one more than the other? Did you like being a pool director more than a teacher, or did you like being a teacher more than a pool director? Was there one?
You know, they are two so totally different jobs, and yet they have similar things that you require to do them properly. The best teaching years were teaching 7s and 8s. They're nothing that can compare to that.
Why is that?
They think, and they're developing, and they're not like teaching grade 3s or grade 4s where you say something and automatically they respond and do as you request, because you raise your voice. Yeah. Raising your voice to 7s and 8s gets you nowhere.
Speaking of raising your voice, Christina, Scott's sister, talks about the whistle that she always heard you. She knew Dad's whistle. Can you do the whistle?
Just his teeth. Now I got to figure out how to tone that down when I'm editing.
Very sheer. Yeah. You can hear that anywhere, regardless of the noise in a pool. It's just piercing. So it worked with kids.
That's a remarkable talent.
It reminded them that I was really telling them to kick their feet. They change the rhythm of their feet, they'll change the rhythm of their stroke, and everything improves. Kick your feet. Yeah.
Okay. If there's a person who's that comes to mind who's alive today that you wish you could talk to, who would it be? Anybody. It could be a celebrity. It could be anybody. Maybe even somebody that you already do talk to. But
I can't even remember his name. But he was the guy that I had to go for an interview with at the University of Toronto to become part of the phys ed program, and he stopped and he said, "You are exactly what we're looking for. You are a professional teacher, and you want to come and extend and earn a phys ed degree." He said, "You already know how to teach." He said, "You're such an enrichment to our program." And he took me on.
What a kind compliment. That's a lovely compliment. So we're going to assume he's still alive because we don't know.
Yeah. But what makes him stand out as a person you'd want to talk to more? Like just because he was really good with his compliment.
Well, and he had such an influence on the whole phys ed program for U of T, and yet he was quiet and in the background because he supervised so many other people like Robin Campbell. Robin Campbell worked under him, and yet he had been there forever. No one could remember when phys ed was without this guy.
So to go back and touch base and say, here's how the story progressed since then.
Yeah, I'm sure he's not alive now. He was an older man then, so I was pretty young then. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's say he's still alive. So now that goes to the next question. If there's somebody who's passed away, who would it be? Somebody who you know for sure.
Yeah.
You'd like another 5 minutes with?
Dr. Lennox.
And why Dr. Lennox?
Just because he was so influential at a time that he was actually responsible for getting the grants for that hospital. We wouldn't have had a hospital without him initiating that. I don't believe. That's the way I remember it anyway. Dr. St. John was also in the community at the time, so I'm not sure that the two of them didn't work together to make that happen.
When we started this, and I'd said that you were influential in making the town what it is, like you think about how many people use that pool, how many people have used that pool for the over 50 years that it's been, because I know 1972, that's the year that's on the plaque, that's my birth year, so I know it's over 50 years old, and how much of a contribution that building has made to this township. And so then you start bringing in the fact that you worked with people that brought in the hospital, and so thank you for the interview, but thank you for being part of this town's history. And it seems self-serving, but I'm really proud of you to go and say that. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And this is such a wonderful community, and to see it growing and expanding and changing. Uxbridge will never be the small little community that allowed people to become so easily involved. Now you have to almost know someone to become a committee member. That's a new life the town is acquiring. And I know the next step is you can't join anything unless you're elected to it. Because size is going to create that.
Do you ever feel that itch?
The small town.
Do you ever feel the itch to go back and get in there and help again, or just get the balls rolling for whatever you think needs to get done?
Not so much that needs to get done, it's just to be part of it again. Now the thought is that they're going to spend millions of dollars, go north of town and build a brand new facility. And what will it acquire them? They already have the facility. There is a ground right next to it. Why not expand outside of our existing building and have everything that you want for so much less money than thinking brand new again? That pool still functions and works as well as it did in day one. Yeah, they're distracted again. In behind the paint of that, there's a purple wall. That was my...
Of course there is. Anybody who knows you knows French fries and purple.
That was the other reason why I thought of this, because Mayor Dave and I had sort of an interaction on Facebook, just like messaging. We weren't going public, but we were talking when he was talking about the new facility that they wanted to build. And so I was coming back because I was talking to you and you were giving me stats and things about the original building. And I remember messaging him, and then he was coming back to me going, how do you know all this? So, yeah. They're
Talk to the old people.
Well, yeah. And there's times where everybody seems to shoot their mouth off on the community Facebook groups and stuff. And there's a lot of information that people just don't know. And so that's the one thing. We never started that as a mandate for this podcast, but there's definitely something there where we go, not only do you need to know what's happening as far as the people that are in this town, but also just the overall history and what's involved and what's going on, because there's just so much stuff we just don't know. We don't know that's in the background. So thanks for shedding some light on it.
Okay, there seems to be a lot to unpack here in this episode, so I'm just going to go right to it and hit a couple of subjects that sort of struck my head. One, well, two guys want to play squash. Now we have squash courts. Only two. There were two squash courts, so I'm not sure if they were playing like solo or one.
Reminds me of Pong. Remember when we were kids and you'd just play one person or two person? Maybe they had one person squash.
Yeah, this was before cell phones, so it wasn't like somebody was recording them playing and saying, this is how I played. How did you play?
But again, it's forward thinking, right? They assumed that they would have more resident use of the squash courts and obviously of the pool. They said one guy came over and went swimming. Well, that wouldn't pay for the pool. So the amount of use that's happened over the last 50 years is incredible. So I'm amazed with their foresight with that.
The amount of use, like we talked about it in the intro where we said how many classes there were. There's aquafit and there's public and lane swimming, the swim teams there. And that was something where, okay, my dad's never been good at names. So there was a time where we would be walking downtown and somebody would see him and they go, oh, Mr. Campsall. And maybe he had taught them in school. And he'd have like a half an hour, 45-minute conversation with the person. We'd walk away and go, who is that? He goes, I don't know. So when we're talking about, who was your favorite swimmer? And I know he's talking about Amanda and Mark Ferraro when he's talking about the Parks and Rec director, but there are so many other people that I can reference back, like, well, Dr. Jennifer Wilson. There's somebody who's made such an impact on this town. And I remember her swimming. I remember my dad coaching her. And so there's a lot more influence there. And so, yeah, the guy just doesn't remember names, but there's been a major impact there where if you wanted to give him, if he could, if my dad could sit down and talk about the people that I think he made an impact on, I think there'd be a long list.
And that speaks volumes to his character, to the legacy that he's provided to our town as a teacher, as a swim director. Let's go back to the pool. What do you think is the next step?
It's hard to say because I know when Mayor Dave Barton and I were talking about it, he gave a lot of good reasons why there should be a new facility. I had questioned him on almost the same thing that my dad had said was, why should we build something brand new when we could just renovate what we've already got? And I think there's a lot of good arguments there, but the amount of money that has to be invested in restoring what is already there and bringing it up to date, even just the temperature of the pool, people will swim in Port Perry and other communities because of the fact that the water's warmer.
Well, let's hope whoever the committee is consisting of moving forward, whether we keep this pool, whether we get a new one, let's hope that the people making the decisions are with the same like-mindedness of forward thinking that your dad and his counterparts were.
I don't know if he meant to be eloquent with it or what, but one of the cool things, and I'm going to remember this quote for a long time, like my dad's obviously given me a lot of wisdom over the years, but I really liked when we were starting to talk about his whistle. And the one quote he said was, kick your feet, change the rhythm of your feet and it change the rhythm of your stroke. And it just seemed like such a Zen life thing. Like you just change the way you fight and everything changes. And well, what he said, everything improves. And I think there's a big life lesson there.
I can't whistle like that though.
I don't think you need to. I think I'll come to you anyway. You all you gotta do is call me.
Will you kick your feet though?
Always.
Because dad whistled so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the reason you make me kick my feet.
Dale, Dad, thank you for spending the time with us. It was a special interview for us to enjoy the time with you, but I think the listeners who have had the opportunity and the luxury of spending time with you as a teacher and as a swim coach and simply as a friend are all the better for it.
I'm looking forward to the feedback on this. We get messages every once in a while. Somebody will go and say they heard an episode or that they really enjoyed something that we had done in an episode. And I just know there are a lot of people that really like my dad. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the compliments that I know he deserves.
Bring on the comments.
This has been a Campsall Broadcasting production.